Hi, in this video we will show how we can use payload converters to ingest data in Waylay. In order to do that, let me first go to our documentation, where you can see that connectors can be connected to a converter, and then before being forwarded back to the broker, you can actually use the velocity templates to intercept the payloads and then forward them to the broker. Before we continue, maybe it's interesting to mention when you would like to use that feature. For instance, if you have the edge device that has aggregation of multiple devices and measurements, you would like to, for instance, split that payload before entering into the system. So what we can see in our documentation when we use the payload converters, we basically need to describe a velocity template which will be used to render the payload prior to entering into our system. For instance, in this case, we might have an array of measurements, like in this case, two different sensors, which are sending different values. And what you would like to do is basically to go through this payload and then prior to inserting data, change, for instance, a metric name or do some simple multiplication and so forth and so forth. We can do similar things for a metadata, meaning that we can as well enrich the digital twin information for a given resource and add, like in this particular case, name or any other thing. So what I will do next is I will basically take one payload example that we can actually see here. This is my payload JSON, and next to that I have created upfront one velocity template, which you can actually see here. So this is my template, properly scaped of a type velocity, and here is my payload that I'll be using for testing prior to installing that in our system. Now what I have to do now is to basically cut the API key. What that basically means is that I need to go back to the settings and first cut an API key. This is what I've done here. So basically I created API keys pairs, and these ones I can use for the integration. The next thing I will do is to basically test my velocity template. In order to do that, let me just go over my history here, and what we see here, I'll be using this API key. I'll be taking the payload as described in my JSON file. Similarly, I will take a velocity template, and let me just test it first. What you see now is that the test has passed, and meaning that we are now ready to upload this one as well in our environment. So let me do that here. What I'm doing is basically I'm using an API endpoint. I'm pointing to my velocity JSON template, and I'm uploading that in our environment. So what you see here is that I have updated the converter, and this is the name I gave before. For instance, just for test, let me make one more, test2, which has basically the same template. And what we should have now, if I go to my broker and into configuration, I should now see two velocity templates. Let me select the first one in my test, and now we are ready to test this with our MQTT Explorer. So here I have an MQTT connection. This is my payload, and notice here I have two measurements for two different devices, and in my velocity template I have decided that this is going to be my resource under which I'm going to be sending and saving data for the temperature, humidity, and so forth and so forth. There is also a name that will be used as a friendly name notation for this resource. As soon as I've published that, we can actually see that data has been received, it has been forwarded to the test1 converter, and as a result of that, let me see if I have created these resources. Yes, here it is, and this is the friendly name data device test1, and here is the data which I just pushed here. I can as well now try to test that with maybe changing values to, let's say, 12 and 60 for this first one here. And as soon as I publish that, we can actually see here now that we have actually added one more data point. And here, for instance, if I look at humidity, we can see that basically I have pushed two data points, 53 and 60. Thank you.